The Vegan Society defines veganism as, quote, a way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose, end quote. Now, I've been vegan for 12 years. Before that, I was a vegetarian for 15 years, so I haven't eaten meat in 27 years. I haven't eaten eggs or dairy in 12 years. In those 12 years, I've also avoided animal products in my soaps, shampoos, toothpastes, deodorants, moisturizers, sunscreen, lip balm, and so forth. And I've also avoided wool and leather. It gets kind of lonely when you make unpopular choices and feel like the odd one out. So over the years, I have tried to connect with like-minded people in various vegan groups online, only to find we are not like-minded at all. Most vegans will look at a picture of a cute animal and say, "Oh my God, I want one." Just those 3 words, "I want one," tells me a person is not a vegan, even though they call themselves vegan. All vegans agree animals exist for their own reasons and are not here to serve us. They say we have no business keeping them captive and harming them for our entertainment or trivial enjoyment. And taste is trivial. All vegans agree harming animals because we like the taste of their dead bodies or secretions when delicious alternatives are available to us is unethical. But this idea vegans have, that animals exist for their own reasons, seems only to apply to farm animals or wild animals. These so-called vegans are fine with keeping pets. Not only fine, they celebrate and glorify pet ownership. The idea that animals exist for their own reasons flies out of the window when it comes to pets. Let's look at the definition again. Veganism is defined as a way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose. As a vegan, you should be trying to avoid all forms of exploitation and cruelty to animals. But pet ownership is exploitation, and it is cruel, and I'm going to tell you why. Exploitation is defined as, quote, the action or fact of treating someone unfairly in order to benefit from their work, end quote. Let's start with the benefiting from their work part. People benefit from having pets in many ways. What work do pets do for us? Well, they guard our homes, and they protect us. They entertain us. They keep us from feeling bored. They help us make friends or attract romantic partners. They alleviate our feelings of loneliness. They fill us with warm and fuzzy feelings. They soothe us and help us cope with symptoms of mental illness. They provide us with a feeling of being needed and loved unconditionally. They give us motivation to go out and exercise. They provide some people with a reason to get out of bed in the morning. When we take care of a pet, it makes us feel we are doing some good in an evil world wherein so much harm is being done to other animals. By rescuing an animal, we feel like saviors. They make us feel like we are good, kind, caring people. Pets provide us with responsibility and the satisfaction of fulfilling that responsibility. These are some of the ways in which people benefit from having pets. Now let's look at the other part of the definition of exploitation, the part about the action or fact of treating someone unfairly in order to benefit from their work. Most pet owners would never agree that they are treating their pets unfairly, but even the most responsible pet owners are in fact treating their pets unfairly. By definition, veganism is a way of living which seeks to exclude cruelty to animals, but keeping pets is inherently cruel. There is no way around this. Gary Francione, who wrote and co-authored several books about animal rights, examines the inherent problems of domestication. And in an essay I'm linking you to in the description, he explains why pet ownership is not consistent with a sound theory of animal rights. I'm also going to link you to a YouTube video wherein Mango Wadzak, author of books on veganism and fruitarianism, explains how keeping pets is not vegan. Clearly, it's cruel to keep birds trapped in cages and fish, reptiles, amphibians, and invertebrates trapped in glass boxes. But what about cats and dogs? Even though they have been domesticated for thousands of years, these creatures still have strong instincts to be amongst their own kind, to roam, scavenge, hunt, fight, mate, and do what comes naturally to them. When we keep them trapped in our homes, we are depriving them of their natural behaviors. When we spay or neuter them, we alter them in unnatural ways so that they'll be more compliant and better suited to live in our human environment. I'm not suggesting people quit sterilizing their pets, as clearly sterilizing our pets is the responsible thing to do, but I'm just pointing out how unfair it is to alter another being in this manner, and to exercise complete control over its reproductive system. I think about it this way. Imagine if aliens came to Earth, saw humans, and thought, "Aw, they're so cute, I want one." It would not be right for the aliens to imprison us on their spaceships, sterilize us to make us more compliant, put us through training schools so we could better fit into their society, put collars and leashes on us, and yank us around. We belong in a human environment with other humans so that we can engage in our human behaviors. In the same way, animals belong in their own environment with their own kind so they can engage in their natural behaviors. As pet owners, we exercise complete control over every aspect of our pet's existence. We decide when they get to drink fresh water. We decide when and what they eat, when and where they get to relieve themselves, when and if they get to exercise or socialize or receive affection. Our pets have no say in anything. One might argue that human children have no say either, but the majority of human children grow up to become independent and autonomous. Dogs are pack animals, and we leave them alone all day, often crated or cooped up in small apartments while we go to work, which is very stressful and upsetting to them because they long to be with their pack. I am not suggesting people bring their dogs to work because there are a lot of people who are allergic to dogs or simply don't like being around dogs, and it's unfair to force those people to be around your dog. What I'm saying is that while leaving your dog at home all day while you're at work is the right thing to do, it is also cruel and unfair to the dog. No matter how well we treat our pets, they will never belong in our world because they are not human. Most vegans don't see this. Most actually feel a moral obligation to, quote, rescue dogs and cats from animal shelters. And they passionately insist adopting pets is the right thing to do because the animals would otherwise be killed. What they fail to realize is that for every dog or cat they rescue, there are perhaps 100 or more waiting to take its place. By adopting a pet, they are keeping the wheels of this evil machine turning. They actually contribute to the massive problem by normalizing pet ownership. There is so much suffering inherent in the pet industry, it's truly mind-blowing. It's because of people like them, these pet lovers, that animals are suffering in the first place. And they are the ones I hold responsible for all this suffering. Nothing is going to change until we quit viewing animals as ours to own. That will never happen as long as people own pets. Nothing will change until we collectively denounce pet ownership. We need to frown upon it. We need to discourage others from viewing animals as property, as ours to own. Because even if you call it a companion animal or a fur baby or whatever, you still own it. It is still your property. By becoming a pet owner, you're putting out the message that it's great to own pets, and you're encouraging others to follow your lead. And as long as people own pets, the animals are going to suffer. The statistics will, of course, vary depending on where you live, but in the USA, where most of my viewers on YouTube live, approximately 1.5 million dogs and cats are euthanized each year. People are being encouraged to adopt animals. And while 3.2 million shelter animals are adopted each year, approximately 6.5 million enter U.S. animal shelters every year. It's a giant revolving door, and only about half the animals that enter the shelters are adopted. People are adopting animals only to find out they are too much work or too annoying, so they bring the animals back to the shelter. It's nearly impossible to calculate the number of dogs and cats that are being abused and neglected. People are harming dogs and cats in different ways, by being unintentionally or intentionally cruel to them. Hoarding behavior victimizes animals. Even if we required everyone to treat their pets well, and if we somehow devised a workable and enforceable scheme that would require pet owners to provide a higher level of care for their animals, the animals would still be their property. And no matter how well we could force people to care for their pets, the animals would still be held captive in a world they don't belong in. That in itself is unethical. When you adopt or rescue an animal, you're putting out the message that it's virtuous to be a pet owner, that becoming a pet owner makes you morally superior to non-pet owners because you are doing this great thing. In this way, you influence others to get a pet, and the ball just keeps rolling. If you truly want to minimize the suffering of animals, which is the basic idea of veganism, you would therefore discourage others from owning pets. You would denounce pet ownership. Not only would you discourage others from owning pets, you would set an example by not owning pets either. Gary Francione, the author of those animal rights books I mentioned, lives with 6 rescued dogs. This is akin to a person telling you you should not smoke pot while sitting in a cloud of their own marijuana smoke. It's ludicrous. You need to set an example for others. If you see how owning pets is unethical, you would not own pets. Then there's the issue of what people are feeding to their pets. Looking at the definition of veganism again, which is, quote, a way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose, end quote. By definition, vegans seek to avoid exploitation of animals for food. So, if you are buying animal products to feed to your pets, you are not a vegan, because vegans don't support the exploitation of animals for food. I often hear the argument that the animal products in pet foods are byproducts of the meat industry and would otherwise be discarded, wasted. Yet I don't hear them use this argument when they talk about gelatin, for example, which is derived from the skin, bones, and connective tissues of animals. Like gelatin, which vegans avoid, the animal products that go into pet food are sold for profit. When something is sold for profit, it is no longer a waste product no one wants, because someone wants it. There is a demand for these products, just as there is a demand for meat. A demand is a demand. There are no waste products here. There are products unfit for human consumption that are in demand, just as the products that are fit for consumption are in demand. But that raises another point. As more and more people humanize their pets and treat them like cherished members of the family, the demand for higher quality pet foods is growing. More and more people are choosing pet foods made from human-grade ingredients. So the meat consumption of our pets should be considered an add-on to our own. But whether you feed your pets human-grade meats or meat byproducts, you are still supporting the meat industry. And by definition, vegans don't support the meat industry. So you cannot be a vegan if you are purchasing animal products to feed to your pets. It makes no sense to condemn countless animals to torture and death in order to save the life of one that shares its home with you. Vegans claim to love animals, but give no thought to the suffering of the countless animals that are brutally tortured and killed in order to become pet food. Supporting the meat industry goes against the definition of veganism, which, again, states that vegans seek to exclude all forms of exploitation of animals for food. A UCLA researcher recently found that feeding pets creates the equivalent of 64 million tons of carbon dioxide a year. 64 million tons of carbon dioxide has about the same climate impact as a year's worth of driving from 13.6 million cars. More and more people are choosing to eat less meat in order to help reduce the devastating environmental impact of meat production. So if you're concerned about climate change, deforestation, and ocean acidification, as most vegans are, it makes no sense to feed your pets meat and thereby contribute to this massive problem. I will link you to the study called Environmental Impacts of Food Consumption by Dogs and Cats, which in 2017 found that cats and dogs are responsible for 25 to 30% of the environmental impact of meat consumption in the United States. If Americans, 163 million dogs and cats, comprised their own country, it says, it would rank 5th in global meat consumption, behind only Russia, Brazil, the United States, and China. There is also the colossal environmental problem of pet waste. America's pets produce about 5.1 million tons of feces a year, as much as 90 million Americans. All of this waste is untreated and is contaminating our water. All of the plastic bags used to bag the dog poop are polluting the environment. Please see my video about the dog waste problem. Most vegans are very concerned about the environment, yet seem to turn a blind eye to the huge problem of pet waste. Compared to a plant-based diet, meat requires more energy, land, and water to produce, and has greater environmental consequences in terms of erosion, pesticides, and waste. I'm also providing a link to some facts that are discussed in the documentary Cowspiracy, which you should watch on Netflix if you haven't already. It's an eye-opening look at the devastating environmental impact of the meat industry. Dogs can thrive on a vegan diet. There are nutritionally adequate vegan dog foods on the market, which are great for dogs. There's actually a border collie named Bramble that ate an exclusively vegetarian, actually vegan diet, consisting of organic vegetables, rice, and lentils, who lived to the age of 25. When I had a dog, I fed her a vegan diet, and her health was stellar. Cats, on the other hand, seem to require meat to be healthy. I'm not an expert on this. I've read conflicting things. I know some cats seem to thrive on vegan cat foods, while others don't do well. And the consensus seems to be that cats are obligate carnivores that require meat. The answer is really simple. Vegans seek to exclude as far as is possible and practicable all forms of exploitation and cruelty to animals. There is nothing in the definition of veganism that says you need to rescue animals or share your home with a pet. Keeping pets, even rescues, is inherently cruel, regardless of what you feed them. Imprisoning these animals in our homes, keeping them captive in environments that are not natural for them and in which they do not belong, depriving them of their natural behaviors, and exercising complete control over every aspect of their lives for the entirety of their lives, amounts to exploitation because it is unfair. The only way you can truly call yourself a vegan is if you are pet-free.